Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I'm here to tell you about an awesome way for you to rub elbows with your favorite podcast hosts here on the Sports History Network, while at the same time rooting for your hometown team this upcoming NFL season. You've been hearing all about our partner, Tailgate Fantasy, the past few weeks. Well, dig on this. Tailgate created a special Sports History Network league for our listeners, so we can put the word fan back into fantasy football together. It's free to join, and if you do so before the season kicks off, you'll automatically be entered into a drawing for a free t-shirt from one of our other partners, Home Field Apparel. It's a win-win-win! So hurry up today and head to sportshistorynetwork.com/tailgate for all the details. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/tailgate. This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com. On January 10th, 1870, John D. Rockefeller went into business with his brother and some partners, founding Standard Oil, a company that would ultimately combine pretty much all of the competition into one conglomerate and revolutionize the oil industry. Rockefeller did this in Cleveland, Ohio, while one of the other men that built America, Andrew Carnegie, pretty much did the same thing in Pittsburgh with the steel industry. What do these two have in common with this week's episode? Well, it all revolves around combining all of your assets into one place to get some better vision. Welcome to Fantasy Football Origin Stories, where each episode is a journey back in time to explore the unique experiences of some of the coolest and most influential people in the fantasy football industry. I'm your host, Arnie Chapman, also known as the Football History Dude. Now, I love fantasy football, and I want you to come along with me to explore the yesteryear of the armchair gridiron. So hop on board my DeLorean, and let's get this baby up to 88 miles per hour.
Great Scott.
This time to stop with the DeLorean. The date is September 18th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We're just outside Three River Stadium, or Heinz Field, or whatever they're calling it nowadays, before the Monday night game between the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yes, that's a tie-in to Carnegie and Rockefeller, and that's the Monday night game when this episode releases. I mean, come on, man. You know I had something to tie it all in, right? But speaking of tying it in, how does it tie into this week's episode? Well, get this. We just finished off a few brewskis and some brats or burgers or whatever else it is that you'd like to have at a tailgate, and we're about to head into the stadium. But we want to place a nice little wager on the game to have some extra skin in the game. But what app gives us the best odds, you ask? Who knows? I guess I should probably go through and figure it out, right? Oh yeah, plus I have to check out my 5 different fantasy teams all on different apps too. I mean, man, this seems like a chore in itself. Do I really want to do this? Do I really want to go and take care of this business before I go into the stadium and enjoy my night? Eureka! We have a solution. Or maybe to keep in the theme with the DeLorean, I should say, Great Scott! Is that Doc coming back from the future? It sure is, and he's here to tell us about an app called Bettor Vision. That's Bettor Vision, an app that allows us to tie all of the books and our fantasy teams in one location, for free, I might add, to quickly see where we can get the best odds. Wait a tick, that's not the future, because we can do that today. We can do it right now. I mean, the future is here, right? Get ready for the betting revolution, baby. And become the next Rockefeller or Carnegie yourself, dominating the competition with the power of Bettor Vision in your pocket. I mean, this is not an ad for Bettor Vision, but we have this week's guest on, co-founder of Bettor Vision and a dude I met at the Fantasy Football Expo here in early August, Brett Lanier. Now, he showed me around the app, with the whole convention thing, and I was hooked. I thought this was a cool concept. It's a free app that connects all of your accounts into one place. So you don't got to keep going in and out of all these different things and trying to figure everything out. But we'll get into that more in the interview here in a minute with Brett Lanier to talk about his fantasy football origin story and the creation of Bettor Vision. But before I do, I got to go ahead and give a quick little update on our listener league. After week 1, yours truly is tied for second place with a little over 46 points. And Gold Blood is all the way up there at first, almost 71 points. I got to figure out my week 2 roster, though. We got to play the Seahawks this week. The Lions do. Thinking I'll probably keep Sun God in there. I mean, come on. It's going to be the number 1 scorer, right? Last week, I didn't have Jahmyr Gibbs. I had David Montgomery, so maybe I'll just switch those guys out. So I'll probably go somewhere that way because remember, you can't have the same roster 2 weeks in a row and you got to rotate at least 2 players. I mean, ultimately, you pick 3 players from your team each week. Yes, I am the Detroit Lions. And then you get to root for your hometown team no matter what. I mean, sure, you could pick another team that's not your NFL team of choice, but what's the fun in that? We're putting the fan back in fantasy football, baby. And that's the beauty of Tailgate Fantasy, the platform that we're using for our listener league. If you want to join, you're welcome to do so for free, even though it is in the middle of the season. Well, I mean, we're past week 1, it is. To join the listener league, all you got to do is head over to sportshistorynetwork.com/tailgate, and you can learn more. Again, Tailgate Fantasy is free to play, and it's the app that we're using for our listener league, so join today, even though it's week 2, because possibly down the future, that's a little teaser bomb for you, we're going to have some weekly winners for some things. So join now. Head to sportshistorynetwork.com/tailgate to learn more. And with that, let's get into this week's interview with Brett Lanier of Bettor Vision.
This last year because
oh, so cool.
We originally thought, or not, my co-founder kind of vetoed it, but I thought about, as part of our promotional thing, we could buy a DeLorean. And I found a couple that were for sale for around $55,000 to $60,000 or so, a couple places in the country, and then get it wrapped in like a Bettor Vision promotional thing, and then that'd be our promotional vehicle. We go to football tailgates, and I'm like, who doesn't want to see a DeLorean, right? Like, so people, instead of us walking around to talk to all the fans there, they would just come to us, and everybody would want to take a picture. I was like, because what our main thing is. It's a convenience play, so we save people time. I'm like, save time, the people we're targeting are these 35 to 45-year-old guys that grew up in the 80s. They probably love Back to the Future, So I thought it was a great idea. I've even found a personalized license plate in Maryland that says save time, and he said no.
No, that would have been awesome. Side note, not to even that I thought about this, but on the way back home today, we saw this, what was it? I guess it was like a truck, but basically a moving billboard. It had like 3 wraps around it, but it was like digital screen, and they just had it parked right there. It was really cool, like something you could like just have someone go to like a festival for you.
Absolutely.
Or something like that.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and then obviously the Back to the Future 2 is all about the, the sports almanac and stuff, so thought it was great.
That's what I thought you were actually. I thought originally you were going to say that you're basically taking. Oh, here we got Gray's Almanac, and we're tying it all together into one app and everything.
Exactly. For you. Yeah, it's all good.
Well, maybe down the road, you might get to that still, and you have different opportunities and that kind of thing. So at least you're familiar. I mean, of course,
yes.
I got some more stuff way back there. You can't see it. The Back to the Future stuff up there and everything. Just anytime. It was a movie that was just really kind of shaped my childhood, I guess you could say, as far as my love for that style. Many people.
You were definitely not alone. Yeah.
But
and it crossed generations. It ended up being my oldest son, my stepson. He's 17 now, but when he was about 7 or 8, a year or 2 into our relationship, we watched Back to the Future, and it became his favorite movie, and we watched it probably like 100 times together over the next 3 years. And so definitely a special movie for me.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where, again, I put the thing on my podcast cover art, and I'm known as the guy who rides a DeLorean and the thing. So it's like I'm always going to have it in there. And okay, so that's me. We're talking about me. I got to get into this thing. I got first time. You're the guest. We brought you on the show. Let's talk about your first. We got to tie it down. I mean, people might hear a little bit of the accent in there, but what about your NFL loyalties? Do you actually have a team that you follow?
I do. I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan. I grew up here in the Baltimore area. I actually have season tickets to the Ravens. My wife and I started dating, one of our first dates was at a Ravens game, and
whoa.
we ended up getting married on the field at Raven Stadium. When we kind of started talking about the future, she was like, look, instead of an engagement ring, I want engagement PSLs. And I was like, she's the one, like.
That is so cool. We contemplated it too at Ford's Field and everything, but never ended up pulling the trigger. So, like, what is even the process for something like that? Like, it was not during the season, right? I mean, or was it?
So it was right after the season. So 2011 season when they lost in the AFC Championship on the, Billy Cundiff missed field goal at the last second. First Lee Evans dropping the touchdown, and then Billy Cundiff missing the field goal that would have tied it into overtime. She was really upset, didn't want to even watch the Super Bowl. I ended up proposing that next weekend, the Super Bowl weekend. And then a little while later that spring, my buddy knew somebody and pulled some strings, and just us and our families on the field. And then a year later, on our 1-year anniversary, we got married in the church. Big ceremony.
Oh, man. That is so cool. I mean, peeling back the curtain, if you listen to my other show, you'll find out that my non-Detroit Lions team is the Baltimore Ravens, and Ray Lewis is my favorite non-Detroit Lions player of all time. And because he grew, like, when I was in high school, the 2000-ish to 2003s when I was playing football, linebacker, so, like, right there, like, he was my guy. I actually got to shake his hand at his Hall of Fame induction ceremony weekend.
Oh, that's awesome.
Side story, because of the podcast right there, I had like press passes. I don't have it in front of me. I'd have to find it, but we have the placard, the little white, like, it's just a piece of paper. It doesn't have any value whatsoever, but the paper that was sitting on his chair at the press conference, after the press conference left, my dad comes up to us and he showed, because my brother, that's his other favorite player, his favorite player too. And he like opens up and just, look what I got. So my brother and I both got each one half of, it's Ray Lewis's Hall of Fame ceremony press pass induction. Yeah, the reserve seat. So we got the placard. Doesn't, like, would anybody know what it means? No, but it's just cool to have. They were going to throw it away. And
yeah,
exactly.
That's awesome.
And then, that dude's got a mean handshake. I'll tell you that much for sure. And I'm sure he was just not even trying that hard even. Yeah. He's probably up there.
I've heard Adrian Peterson has the worst handshake ever. Ray's got to be up there.
So this upcoming year, I mean, okay, now we're tied into fantasy football, right? Because it's fantasy football origin stories. But I mean, you get in this Todd Monken vibe. Are you excited, or is this like locally? It's not a big deal.
No, super excited. I mean, the Orioles are good for the first time in 40 years. It's not that long, but like 20. And so there's a lot of excitement here in Baltimore, both between them and then Lamar signed his contract. We got OBJ. Rashad Bateman's coming back healthy. They drafted Zay Flowers. Like I'm very high on Lamar this year. They're in Superflex drafts. If I had the 101, I'm taking him over, Jalen, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, any of those guys. In every other draft, I reach for him to make sure I get him. I think there's a good possibility that he has an MVP level year this year. Probably not running quite as much as 2019, but at the same time, finally with all those weapons, plus Mark Andrews in there, like, it's going to spread the field a lot. And in Todd Monken's system, like, there's going to be a lot of holes for Lamar to run through. So it's going to be an exciting year. So we're very, very excited. And I thought we had a top 5 defense. We've lost a lot of corners, so I'm a little bit more worried there now, but I still think it'll be a good year.
Yeah, and again, being that it's my non-NFC, I guess you say it's my non-Lions favorite team, so I've always had a heart for them and rooted in everything, so it's easy to, hopefully they have a comeback, and, Lions, this is my year now, hopefully, too, and we'll see. Oh, I don't have it in front of me. Here we go. So, that's the other thing. My Barry Sanders coaster's always at heart. I mean, never. Actually, I didn't have my Barry Sanders jersey on the day I met you. The night before, the Saturday, I had my jersey on the whole time. So
he's my favorite running back of all time and one of my probably top 3 or 4 favorite players.
Yeah, it's hard to argue. I mean, if I wanted to go like back and all, because that's the thing is I learned a lot from that history show of like what a lot of the old timers that really, really did for the league. Yeah. But from my generation, my league or my remembrance growing up, I'll say obviously Barry's number 1, hands down. Yeah. But Ray Lewis again was one of my favorite players. It was him, Ray Lewis, and then Peyton Manning was another one that was always on my radar. So I loved watching the whole Peyton Manning and Ray Lewis kind of like when they would go against each other mentally, more so even than physically.
Yeah. That's what I love the most about Ray and Ed Reed as well, was like the mental back and forth they'd have with the quarterbacks, right? Like they go to the line, they show something, the quarterback audibles. So Ray audibles the defense into something else. And then the guy's like, wait, what? He tries to audible again. And Ray audibles again. Like they were steps ahead. I loved it. It was fun.
Yeah. And plus he hit that trifecta too. Not only was he dominant physically, he had that mental capacity, but then also on top of it, he was an emotional leader that like, how could you not, I'm actually getting goosebumps thinking about his speeches. You probably too. Yep. Yeah. Just thinking about him just saying anything, whatever he talks about.
Yeah. Sometimes you're like, I have no idea what you're saying. What you're saying is absolute nonsense right now, but I'm fired up and I'm ready to go run through a wall. Right. Like,
yeah. Well, to me, it's like similar to how I feel now with Dan Campbell. It's like they have that same, it doesn't matter what he says. I'm a Kool-Aid man right through the wall. Like you just said.
Absolutely. Yep.
But so enough of me drinking Kool-Aid again. The Lions, we'll get back to you. The fantasy football, you alluded to it earlier with the whole like, hey, I'm willing to take Lamar number 1 in Superflex. But what about going back in time, that DeLorean perspective, to like, hey, this is the first time I ever been introduced to fantasy football. Like, what's your first memory of it?
Oh, man. I wish I would have looked it up so I knew the exact year. I think it was 2003. I recently moved to Germany. And I was playing, I was in the armies and moved to Germany, and I was playing with my buddies from high school, right? A bunch of guys from back, middle school, high school friends. And, I think we were on CBS. It was just on the web. It was, compared to nowadays, it was terrible, right? Like it is advanced so much, but, it kept us connected, and I think we chatted on like AIM, the instant messenger thing, and it was awesome. I can't remember who my favorite player was that year. Might have been Curtis Martin. I had somebody that was super good, and I think it was Curtis Martin, but not 100% sure.
Okay, so talk about. I mean, we talk about like how fantasy football can bring people together as friends or families, but like across the seas, I mean, you're talking 6 or 7 time zones right there.
Yeah. I think most of my buddies were still in Eastern time zone. I think we had one guy on Central, so we were so from Central to Germany, I think we were 7 time zones apart, and it was the best, and that kind of formative experience over those next few years while I was there and when I was in Iraq, and which I pretty much abandoned my team because I didn't really have internet access most of that year. But but when I could log in and see how things were going, it was great. It really kept me connected to those guys. I wasn't calling them on the phone or anything like that, so it was really cool. And then when I moved back to the States, and left some of those guys in Germany, I formed a league with those guys, and then got in another league with my friends from back home. And then my next Army stop, I made another league with those guys. And then grad school, made another league. Like it became this thing of from now on, wherever I am with a group of people, if we're good friends, we form a fantasy league. And all of a sudden now I'm in 22 fantasy leagues, I think.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Okay. That's going to kind of tie us into a little bit later, the teaser bomb for what the reason why you're here. Before we do that, though, let's get into you get 2 options. Either I give you the DeLorean, take the keys back, and you can get a mulligan on one of your picks, or you can bring back your favorite pick of all time that you had, and he can be on your team this year.
I'll probably go bring a pick back. And it was 2019. I was high on Lamar that year, and I took him, and I won every single league I was in. I think I was in 4 leagues that year, and I swept them. At first, he won the championship everywhere because he was just like a cheat code, right? I mean, he was just scoring so many more points than everybody else. So, and I had a couple other good picks that year too, but he really drove that across all my leagues. So since I think he's going to do it again this year, I'd love to have him in every league again. Gotten sniped a couple times, but have a lot of exposure to him this year.
Yeah, I only have him in one, I think, if I got to go back. But yeah, I've had him locked and loaded in the queue, but I just wasn't able to get him at this. I have Andrews maybe 3 times now, something like that. Yeah, I've been getting, actually, I somehow in my other league, I got him on the turn, the 3-4 turn on the way back. I'm like, how did this happen? Yeah, I was like going to take him. I'm willing to take him in the second round sometimes, and everything.
Yeah, I usually see him go late second, maybe early third, but never into the fourth. Wow, that's awesome.
Well, that was a league where I'm like, okay, you know what? This time I do have exposure to Andrews. I'll take Darren Waller this time just because I don't really have him. And then all of a sudden Andrews is there. I'm like, how can I not take him on the fourth? I got to take him. So I was like looking at my team, like, how did this happen kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so you alluded to it. I mean, I got all these drafts. I got, like you said, you have 20 leagues or whatever it is. And maybe that helps us tie in like this, the reason why you're on here. Let's talk about the napkin moment of Bettor Vision. And then we can tie it into like a history of up to being on the Fantasy Football Origin Stories.
Yeah. So I came up with the idea for Bettor Vision it probably struck me, I think, in the fall of 2020. I was living in Chicago at the time, and sports betting had been legalized there. And at this point, I was in, I can't remember how many leagues at that point, I think 4 or 5. I had 3 different fantasy apps. I had DraftKings and FanDuel daily fantasy, and sports betting got legalized. So it was, deposit $100, get $500 in free bets. So I signed up for all of them. And in Chicago or in Illinois, that was 5. So I had 10 apps that I was going through on Saturdays and Sundays, trying to just track everything. And early in that football season, I hit a $10 parlay that was a 10-team parlay, and I won $10,000. And so I pulled out half of that and then left the rest in as house money. And all of a sudden, instead of betting, $100 a day, in $10 and $20 bets, 5 to 10 or $20 bets on Saturdays. And again on Sunday, I was now doing $1,000 each of those days, but it was still $10 or $20 bets. And so now I had, 50 or 60 bets out there, and I'm clicking on like every single promo on all these apps. And so at one point I was on, both sides. I bet both sides of the game on different apps, and just trying to track it all was a mess. And so I was using Mint as my financial aggregator at the time, where it combines all your, checking accounts and savings accounts and credit card accounts and real estate and investments and all that, and pulled it all in one place with the dashboard. And I was like, God, I wish there was something like this for this super fragmented industry, to let me see all of my bets and all my teams and all my contests and matchups in one place. So like while I'm watching the game, when something happens, I don't look down and, swipe through a bunch of different apps trying to see how it affected things, look up, and I've missed a couple minutes of game time. So, we looked around, couldn't really find anybody that was doing it. And so I was like, yeah, somebody should build something like that. But I didn't know how to do that. So the plan wasn't for me to do it. It was like, I wish somebody would do that. And then about a year later, I was retiring from the Army. And a good friend of mine, a guy that I'd met when I went to business school 10 years prior, we'd been in a fantasy league for 10 or 11 years at that point together, 2 fantasy leagues together, actually. Had quit his job. He had been a management consultant or a marketing consultant, but always wanted to work in sports. Quit his job, went back and got his master's degree in sports administration, data analytics, was going to go work for like the Bears, the Bulls, or somebody there in Chicago where he lived. And sports betting got legalized while he was in grad school. So he wrote his thesis on the future of sports betting. This company called Wager was basically building what he wrote his thesis on. So they hired him to to kind of help them bring their product to market. And so during that year of 2019 to 2021, or I guess 2020 to 2021, I was kind of following his journey and kind of like, oh, that's so cool. You work in sports and it's sports betting and like it's a startup and that seems awesome. Not thinking that I was going to do that at the time. I was just like, what you're doing is so cool. And then they launched that August of 2021. And all of a sudden I was getting ready to, I was retiring. I was getting ready to go interview for some jobs that I didn't really want to do. I was going to go work at some consulting firm. And I was like, I've got that idea for that aggregation app. I wish I could do that. Geoff actually has a lot of experience, bringing an app like, in that space to market. Let me give him a call and see if he thinks it's a good idea, if he'd be willing to do it. And he said, yeah, let's do it. So that's kind of how it happened.
Awesome. I mean, to talk about being able to not just the whole fill a pain point of your own and then, some other people need it, but it's like it was a journey you went through because you realized, hey, your buddy can have it. And then now it's something that like, okay, what is it called again?
Bettor Vision.
Bettor Vision. And for the listener of the show, it's Bettor, Bettor Vision. And the purpose of why is Bettor Vision the name?
Because I wanted... the main feature in my mind when I first thought of it was the dashboard. And I was like, I wanted a better view of all of my stuff in one place. And so I was trying to think of something like Command Center or Fantasy and Betting Command Center or something clever, and I couldn't. And then all of a sudden I'm like, well, what if it's, Bettor Vision? And actually when I pitched Geoff on the idea that one night in August, I was like, I got an idea for the name too. And he thought it was going to be something like Brett's betting app or Fantasy and Betting app or something stupid. And I told him Bettor Vision and he's like, okay, yeah, we'll just stick with that. So I don't know if it was the best idea early on. Everybody's like, is it a eyeglass company? Like, I don't get it. My mom told me it was a terrible idea. She's like, it's spelled wrong. And I'm like, no, Mom, that's a person that bets. She's like, I don't think people are going to get that. I was like, I think my customers will. But
yeah, it makes sense on both fronts though, because you're getting Bettor Vision into your Bettor type of like thing. So no, it makes sense. That's why, the play on words, I guess is what you would say.
Yeah.
So, we got this thing. You said that night in August, and that was when you pitched it. What was the pitch like?
We talked on the phone for probably about an hour and a half. The pitch to him originally was like, hey, I've got this idea. I'd love to run it by you. Here's what I want to build. And then started talking kind of high level and then started jumping into some features that I thought would be cool. And then he had some ideas and he was throwing them out. And, towards the end, we looked down and like, oh my God, like I was going to pick up dinner for my family. And I was sitting in the parking lot for like 45 minutes of the place. And, so the food's kind of cold. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to go. I got to get back home, bring dinner to my family. And he's like, okay, cool. Let me talk to my wife. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And he went home, talked to his wife, called me the next day and was like, hey, talked to my wife. She said, go for it. I just put in my 2 weeks at Wager. Let's do this. And I was like, whoa, like this was an idea. I haven't even talked to my wife and got approval that I could do it, right? Like you can't quit your job yet. So luckily I talked to my wife that next day and she said, yeah, as long as like, don't mortgage the house, like if this is what you want to do, you can do it. Just, don't lose our house. I was like, okay, cool.
Wow. I mean, that's talking about jumping into the deep end right away. And you also had like a legit, what they call the, what's it, driveway moment. Like when you're listening to a podcast or a show and you stood at the driveway and you'd realize, oh, it's already 30 minutes. And you could tell you're onto something at that point. So that's pretty cool. You guys got to do that.
Did a lot of that like early iteration because, we're both start talking about, oh, well, what else do we not like about, the current experience? Oh yeah. How about this? How about this? How about this? Like all these ideas were popping up at the moment. So. was pretty cool.
So take me back to that. Like let's get to the sausage and all that stuff. Like, how do you go about from idea generation and this is a cool idea to now all of a sudden the mechanics and then getting into actually launching it?
Oh man! So after he committed, I committed, got both of our bosses' approval, partners' approval. We spent a lot of time figuring out, like, okay, what is currently out there in the industry, right? So a lot of market research, looking at competitors, looking at what we currently used, some of the sites and the ones that we liked the best, the ones we didn't like, why we didn't like them, trying to figure out why we liked the ones we did like. Started looking at, the market potential, how could we monetize it, all things like that. And then talking to some of our buddies that had worked as startups before, to just get an idea of like, what do we need to do? I don't know how to start a company, right? Like, so a lot of that. So that was the first probably 2 or 3 months. And then we were like, okay, how are we going to build this? Neither of us were technical co-founders. So, started looking around at people that we knew that could potentially be technical co-founders, and couldn't really find anybody that was the right person at the time. So we're like, okay, what about a dev shop? So talked to a firm in India, and then talked to a firm out of Miami that most of their developers were down in Colombia, and eventually found a firm in Houston. Decided fantasy football is such a uniquely American thing that the developers and designers and UX, UI people that we had talked to in India and in Colombia probably would have a hard time understanding and empathizing with our customer. And so we decided to go pay a little bit more and go with American development company, Dev Shop. And they were phenomenal partners, a company called Umbridge out of Houston. And once we hired them, we did a lot of work with, the early, working on Miro boards and talking about the customer journey and all the features it needed, like just for the MVP, the like minimum. Okay, if we're going to do this, what's the absolute minimum that we need? What's the data that we need? And then like, what do we want that look and feel to look like? What apps and websites do we really like the best? And so we can kind of borrow that kind of style and be inspired by it, and kind of came up with the way it looks now. And I love it. I think obviously it's when it's your baby, you can see everything that's wrong with it, right? Like I know I'm frustrated with so many things. Like, oh, the vision we have for it in the future, it's falling so short of that. But right now, it's still pretty cool, But I really do like the UX of it. So proud of that, how that turned out.
I mean, it's still at the very early. I mean, you're just at the infancy, so where it can go is just going to be astronomical. I mean, so the listener of the show too, like, how much is it going to cost me to get your app?
It's free. So that was another thing. We wanted it to be free for users. We figured out rather than charging people, $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month, some of our competitors' apps, we could make more money from the targeted personalized ads with our partners, and signing up new people, if we make it easy for them to have a lot of different apps, then they might sign up for more apps, right? So we talked to a bunch of partners and got agreements with them where they told us what they'd pay us if we could sign up new customers. And we're like, okay, cool. Then let's keep it free to the user. So, free for customers.
So it's a low entry. It's a no entry. I guess you could say no barrier to entry, except for just maybe pulling out your phone. And I'm on the website right here, which is Bettor Vision, Bettor Vision.us. And I'm on here and it just says, hey, here's click my phone number and they'll text me the app. I mean, if someone's on their phone too, is it in both Play Stores or all Play Stores, or how does that work?
So right now it's in iOS. We went iOS first. and if we could go back and do it differently, we probably would do it different. But we're building the Android version. We're actually testing the Android version right now. The goal is to get it out before week 1. I think we'll make it. It's gonna be tight. If not, then probably by week 2 we'll have the Android version. And it may be a slightly lighter version to make sure we can get it to customers faster. So it may not have the community feature and some other things, but it's currently live on iOS and soon to be on Android.
Well, perfect. So the time this show actually airs, because it's going to be not the first week of the season, it's going to be probably after we already see the Lions trounce all over Mahomey and the Chiefs, then we'll have the chance to be able to sign up for Bettor Vision on Android as well. So There you go. That's a little Christmas bonus present for you there in September.
Nice.
Let's okay. So we got the listener. Okay, I'm sold because it's barrier to entry is 0. I like what I hear from Brett, all this stuff. I've signed up already. Like, how can I as a listener now take advantage of what Bettor Vision can bring to me to maybe make my experience and all that kind of thing go more smoothly?
Yeah, so first thing you'll do is you'll connect your accounts, right? So you can go and say, I want to add my fantasy accounts, and you've got ESPN, Yahoo, Sleeper, My Fantasy League, Real Time Fantasy Sports, FFPC, and NFC. So those are the 7 currently integrated. And you'll either put in your email and password or username and password. Sometimes it's just username. Depends on that operator and what they require. And then it automatically pulls in all that fantasy information. And then if you happen to play daily fantasy, we've got Underdog and Thrive and Prize Picks and Fliff. And then if you bet on sports, we cover 97% of the sports betting market with our partners as well. So all the big ones: DraftKings, FanDuel, Caesars, BetMGM, Barstool, soon to be ESPN Bet, I think in November, WinBet, Fox Bet, Bet Rivers, Sugar House, Borgata, Betway, Betfred, bunch of them. I think 15 sports books. So you just connect them, and then that data gets pulled all into your dashboard. You can track that there. You can go to the fantasy tab and see all your leagues listed with the current matchup. And then if you click on any one of those, it shows you your lineups. You can swipe through and see the other scores of your league and see your league standings. You can see the free agents, most things that you can do on other fantasy apps right now. You can't change your lineup on our app yet. We only have read access right now. Hope to get write access by 2024. And then the other big feature that people like a lot is if you're a sports bettor, if you go into our betting tab, you can click on any event, and it tells you who has the best odds based on the accounts you have connected. So if you're like me, I'm located in Maryland, so it's pulling the odds in for Maryland. It tells me I've got DraftKings, FanDuel, Caesars, and Barstool connected. I look at the Lions Chiefs game, and here, actually, let me take a look right now and see what it says.
Yeah, real time. Let's see what we can get. This is actually the feature that when I was going through your booth, I thought was the coolest, just the uniqueness of having all of them in one spot. And top of course, you have you can look at, most of us, like you playing for so long, have the different amount of leagues from, I think, 4 or 5 different platforms, whatever it may be, in one place as opposed to going in and out of everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we've found there's a couple of our competitors have odds comparison tools. You can go to, I used to always use Vegas Insider. I bet offshore for a couple of years before, all the mobile sports betting got legalized, and, I'd go to Vegas Insider and it would show across all the operators who had what the line was for everybody. But, what we thought is you don't care about all the lines, right? You want to know who has the best. So we built it like Kayak, and, it shows you the best value. So right now, on the Detroit Kansas City game at DraftKings, I can get plus 6.5 on Detroit, but Barstool gives me plus 7, and that actually might be worth signing up for a new account, right?
Yeah, okay, and then let's tie into that too, because you showed me this on the at the booth. So if I like those odds better, then what do I do? Do I have to go to the other side and figure it out, or what?
You can just click right on it. So if you click, if it's an account you have connected, and you click on the bet, then it adds it to your bet slip in Bettor Vision. You enter what you want to bet, and it tells you what you'll win, or you can enter what you want to win. It tells you what you need to bet. If you can't do that math, especially if it's like minus 265 odds, you're like, oh, I got to bet 265 to win 100. Okay. What's that mean for $5? And then if you click place bet, we're deep linked to our partners. So it opens up that app and takes you right to that event. So you don't have to go searching for whatever that thing is that you wanted to bet on. Takes you right there. You just enter in the amount you want to bet there, hit place bet, and then you actually place the bet. You can't place them on our app. We're not an operator, but it does it there, and then it gets pulled back into our app. So you can track it in either the betting tab or on the dashboard. But if it's at that account that you don't have, that it shows that there are better odds somewhere else, if you click on that, then that starts the sign-up process, right? So that's how we get paid, is if you decide, hey, I want to sign up for this new account so I can get, +7, or maybe it's -2.5 and you can get, maybe it's -3.5 and you can get -2.5. Cross that, key number. That's probably worth signing up for a new book for. So then that process is a little tough. They, require, a lot of information for you to sign up for a new account, but there's nothing we can really do about that yet.
Yeah, but again, for the listener of the show, as someone who may already want to help out Bettor Vision, and if they're going to do it anyway, sign up for the new book, might as well go right through the link and get the affiliate link to kind of throw a little, coffee back your way, or a beer, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So let's get into, I have a little cheat sheet here, some of the stuff that I said right here. Right here. The bet history feature and the personalized content. Can you kind of dig into some of those features?
So the bet history, I wanted to know, personally, how am I doing? Right? I kind of try to keep track in my head, but, when I was doing well, I probably didn't know as, exactly how much I had and how much I had withdrawn and all that. And then when I was not doing so well, there was a couple stretches of months where I was probably winning at less than a 50% rate and just kept depositing money. I probably didn't want to know how bad I was doing, but I should. So we wanted to make it easy to track that, right? So give you your kind of baseball card stats of, your, and by type, right? And so if man, I bet a lot of college football, but I never win, right? Or I'm winning at a 35% rate. But when I bet NFL, I'm winning at a 58% rate. Okay, cool. Do less of the college, do more betting on the NFL, right? Be able to identify where your weaknesses or blind spots are. Maybe I'm, betting my favorite team. Maybe I'm betting the Army college football money line every week. And I'm like, no, they're going to win. They're going to win. They're going to cover. And I'm just delusional. And I'm that bias, is losing me a lot of money. Maybe I need to be
as a Lions fan, I can relate.
Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe it's time of day, right? Maybe it's with Geoff, my co-founder. It's like, hey, what we realized is, when you're making bets after 11 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays, you're not winning a lot. Maybe after you've had a lot of drinks all day, you shouldn't bet late at night, So, that's
the old thing where on DraftKings, the joke is, it's serious too, but you try to post head-to-heads really late on those Fridays, or even super early Sundays right before kickoff, because people aren't paying attention as much. I'll just do it in real quick.
Absolutely. Oh, man. So... that's the betting history, and then sorry, what was the second piece?
So you had the personalized content feature. What does that mean?
So that's not on the app yet. That is something coming hopefully soon. what we also realized, and how we thought we could get the right access from our partners, was right now a lot of the fantasy operators like Yahoo or ESPN or CBS, they want you to stay on the app. So they're like, we were worried they wouldn't want to share the data with us so that customers would use our app instead of theirs. So right now, obviously, the way they protect that is they have right access. We don't. So if you want to make changes, you have to use their app. But the way they make money is through content, right? So they have a bunch of people writing articles. And when I log into my ESPN app, I have personalized articles for the people that are in my lineup, right? They know who's in my lineup. So they send me, hey, here's an article on Lamar. Here's an article on who else do I have a lot of exposure to? Khalil Herbert of the Bears.
Another one that could be a very good steal in the late rounds, by the way.
Yes. That's great, but I'm in 22 leagues across 7 different apps. And I might really like a writer from one of those. It was Matthew Berry. I love Matthew Berry. I like, actually, I don't tell you everybody I like. I like a lot of the writers in the space.
You don't got to leave anybody out. Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
So, I might prefer their articles, and I'm not seeing them because, they're on a different operator. So I would love to be able to aggregate all the content and then personalize it based on all your lineups, right? So push you content from all the providers for all of your players. And then you can pick and choose, or you could maybe select your favorite writers, or you could prioritize them, be like rank your writers, and then those would be prioritized to the top. And then if we can pull that off, or when we pull that off, we want to go back to the operators and be like, look, we're actually increasing the number of people reading your articles because now we're pushing them cross-platform. So instead of all the ESPN players seeing your ESPN article, now people on CBS and Sleeper and My Fantasy League and these others are also reading these articles. So hopefully that puts more eyeballs on their articles. They can sell more ads, and they'll be like, cool, thanks for your help. Here's right access. Keep doing what you're doing.
That's awesome. I mean, that's something that we'll have to talk off air about. The Sports History Network is something else. So this Fantasy Football Origin Stories is one podcast part of a Sports History Network, which is also creates a ton of articles all for sports history and everything. So we'll talk off air about that one. But as I get back into this here, the other thing, there's a couple other say features, and maybe they aren't fully integrated yet, but there's one for responsible gaming, hard limits, and then also the whole follow your friends one.
Yeah. So the responsible gaming is another one that we've got all the designs made for it. But hasn't been coded out. We kind of put that to the back burner when we started developing the Android version. So hopefully early in football season, we'll be able to integrate that. But the other piece is, we don't ever want to be predatory, right? Like this space, especially when you get into the daily fantasy and sports gambling space, it's easy. It's a lot of fun, right? It's a lot of fun to play fantasy. It's a lot of fun to play the daily fantasy and sports bet. It's easy to fall into the trap of chasing losses or, being in more contests than you should. And we don't ever want to kind of target people that are having a problem. And we want people to have fun. And so we want to give them more information to help them, be responsible. Right. So, right now you can set a limit. Every single sports book has a feature where you can set limits, right? And they say to, but it feels kind of, I don't want to say disingenuous because they may genuinely care about their players, but it's not a comprehensive solution because if I hit my limit on DraftKings, I've got 4 other operators. I just go, play somewhere else. So we want to have, hey, set your limit. What is it that your real limit is? Is it $500 a week? Is it $100 a day? Is it $50? Whatever it is for you. And if you hit that, then across, when you aggregate all your activity, then we alert you. We set a cooldown period that you can pick, whether it's 24 hours or an hour or whatever it is. And then we'll also stop showing you ads, right? So you're going to stop seeing the promotions. You're going to stop seeing the personalized ads, which is our next way we're going to start monetizing. Is once we have a lot of customers on board and we have a lot of data, we built this summer a product recommendation engine, kind of like Amazon. You go on Amazon and you buy a book and they're like, hey, other people that bought this book also like this. Amazon knows a lot about you. Like Amazon knows when I run out of toilet paper, right? Like and they're like, hey, send me a little push ad that like, hey, you interested in 10% off toilet paper? Like, oh, wow, I am kind of running out, yeah, I'll buy that. It's because they know your buying patterns. Same kind of thing for us. We see your activity across all your betting apps, what you're doing in daily fantasy. A lot of the pick'ems are basically player prop parlays. And then who's in your fantasy lineups. So we would have a really good understanding of who you are as a sports fan, what you like to do. And that product recommendation engine would ingest that data and then personalize ads to you. That hopefully would be relevant and that you'd be interested in. And so we would turn those off if you hit your cooldown period. We would turn off our partners promotions, and potentially, depending on what your settings are, would turn off your ads, or I'm sorry, your odds. So you wouldn't be able to go and do the research. You could still go to another app and do it. You could go on the web, but like trying to set those limits and put some guardrails on. And then it's up to the user if they want to use them or not.
Yeah, I mean, I like that option and the feature and the way that you go about it, as opposed to just like hey, here's an email, just a notification or something like that kind of thing. What about the social? What was it called? The friends updates. What did I call it?
Yeah, so it's our community feature. So that's
okay.
In the iOS version. There, it's live. It's very limited right now. But if you follow someone but you can go into Bettor Vision and search for other users and you can follow them. Ideally it would be your friends, but eventually it could be, maybe an analyst that you like, or maybe it's just someone that you see that's doing really well that you don't know. You're like, oh, I'd love to see what they're doing. And any bet that they make pops up in your feed. And then it'll say place bet. And if the odds are still there, you can basically trail your friends essentially. Or if they're like Geoff and it's 11 o'clock at night and I see Geoff just made a bet, I'm like, cool, I'm taking the other side of that. Right. Or I've got a high school friend that, anytime we are on like a little group chat and we're picking things to bet, his bet is always the one that kills our parlays. So, yeah, anything I see that he bets popping up, it's like, cool, fade Mike. Sorry, Mike, I love you, but yeah, he knows.
Hey, well, you got to know your league, got to know your team.
Yeah. So that's on there, and then we added, some emojis that instead of being like the typical ones you have on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn that are all the same, it's using the kind of lingo that we use, like hammer that. That's a roll of the dice. You're dummy. That's a genius move. Whatever, those kind of things. And then we also wanted to bring in all the conversations that are already happening, right? So I'm in, I think, like 7 different text chains, plus like 4 WhatsApp conversations, 1 Facebook Messenger group, and a couple Twitter chats that, that talk about sports and either fantasy start sit decisions or trades that someone proposed to me, or draft strategy, or, what sports bets we're going to make. And so we're like, instead of having all those separate messaging conversations, why don't we kind of make it like something like Slack and kind of asynchronously be able to pull that in here, and instead of texting the guys every Sunday morning, like, hey, I've got these 3 guys. I need to start a wide receiver, a flex, and then bench somebody. Who do you think? We built a polls feature, so you can ask questions about a bet you want to make. You can ask start-sit decisions. You can ask questions about like free agent pickups, anything that you might have, or questions you might ask to your friends in those group chats. Hopefully, bring that into the feature, and then people can vote there. They can comment on it.
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, like you said, it's so early at the stages, but you've already had so much advancement, and I can only see it in the future continuing, which is going to be a follow-up question here for that in a minute. But first, let's remind the listener of the show, okay, I'm interested. I still want to sign up, but I forgot, hey, what was the name of that app, or how do I get there again? Yeah, it's Bettor Vision, Bettor Vision. It's you can find it currently in the App Store. Now that it's 2 weeks in the future when we're presenting it, you should hopefully be able to find it on the Google Play Store as well. Or you can go to www.bettervision.us, our website, and there's a link there. That if it's on the web, you put in your phone number, it'll text you the right link for the type of phone you have, or if you're on your phone, it automatically detects what your operating system is and sends you to the right place. Perfect. And as a listener too, like I might have one question right before I sign up. Like if I want to get in contact with you guys, how do I do that? Twitter, we're probably the most active on Twitter. You can follow us at, I think it's just at Bettor Vision. I don't think there's an underscore or anything. Or you could email us. I'm Brett at bettervision.us, or help at bettervision.us. And that goes to me too, because it's just me and Geoff answering all the help tickets. So, all right, perfect. So then this is that I was alluding to this time now. We're going to hop in that DeLorean and go into the future. We're not stealing Gray's Almanac because, man, we gotta keep it legit here. But what we could do is we could try to predict maybe, I don't know if you want to like say cat out of the bag features, or maybe something you hope to try to accomplish with Bettor Vision in the next 5 to 10 years, whatever you want to answer that question with. So we had one that we talked about at the expo. I don't want to share too many of the ideas for the future so other people don't steal them, but I think we're going to build both of these pretty soon. So I'll talk about both these. One we talked about the expo, which is part of my original idea. And then a second one that we talked about this weekend. We were just at a conference all week this week in Indianapolis. And I pitched it to my senior developer and Geoff last night. And he's like, stop building the Android app and build this feature right now. I want it. So I'm like, okay, cool. Let's pitch these two. So the first is the hedging tool. I play a lot of parlays. And I know they're dumb. I know that it's a sucker's bet, but they're fun, right? And so, I've bet a lot of them. I've hit a couple big ones. But my favorite is, they're always shared on, Bleacher Report betting or Instagram bets, or usually the social feeds of the operators, because they love advertising the winners so that more people bet on them. But like what we call like America's bet, right? The guys hit 12 out of 13. He's got one bet left on Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football, and if he hits, the Lions money line against the Chiefs, he hit 12 college football games in the last week, and he's got one feature bet coming. It's the Lions money line, but it's plus 265. They're not favored. Whoa! So slow your roll here before you get it. But I know where you're going. Yeah. So like, should he cash out now and he can cash out or let it ride, right? And I hate that those are the only options, right? So because you don't want to cash out, but at the same time, you hit 12 of those picks already. Like, you should get something for that, right? Like, so a partial hedge, right? Because I can't, if I'm saying, say I bet $10 and I'm going to win 150,000, to hedge that, even at plus 265, I need like $60,000 to properly hedge it. I don't have $60,000 to bet,
So I thought instead of the cash out, what if we could do a partial, essentially it'd be like a partial cash out, but it's essentially a partial hedge. And I'm going to bet, I'll have a little sliding tool, and it can say how much you want to hedge it from none all the way up to a perfect hedge, and it would tell you what your payout would be. And so your upsides keeps coming down, but your guaranteed cash, comes up too. Or you can slide it back some, and the guarantee goes up. So then I'm like, hey, I could pocket $5,000 right now, and instead of winning $150,000, I can still win $80,000. But no matter what, I'm getting $5,000 for what I've done. So that's the hedging tool, and that would obviously be based on the best odds, right? So you could bet at some other operator to make sure you're getting the best. So like the last year at halftime of I think it was the Vikings Colts game, the ridiculous comeback.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there were places where the odds were significantly different at halftime for the Vikings money line. And I think PointsBet had the most, and it was plus 10,000. And other, in some places it was plus 1,000. Another place was plus 1,500. And there was significant difference. And so in that case, obviously you'd want to go with the PointsBet option. So that's the one feature. The second feature that I just pitched the guys yesterday, but I've been thinking about for a while, is the parlay cost comparison tool. So right now, you're just able to pick any bet, and it tells you what sportsbook has the best odds. But what I want to have is you can build a parlay in our app, and every time you add a pick, it now recalculates based on all the operators. And so, when it was a 3 pick, and you had the Lions plus 6.5, and you had the Ravens money line against the Texans, and you had the Vikings money line against the Bucks, FanDuel has the best odds. But if I add now, that the Bengals Browns game is going to go under, well, when you had those original 3 bets plus that new bet at FanDuel, because the odds aren't better at that one, now BetMGM has the best odds. And so that's where you should place that parlay. So it constantly, as you add picks, is recalculating and tell you who has the best odds. So it gets a lot more complicated on our back end. So it may take a couple weeks to get that built, but that may be the next feature after the Android app gets released.
Oh, those are both really cool, especially that second one, I think. I mean, both of them, but that second one is really extra special.
Yeah, it seems like everybody, the most popular bet right now is the parlays, same game parlays. That's what everybody's coming out with. So I think it'll be popular. Hopefully helpful to the customer.
Well, again, I'm a listener of the show. I've already sold. I mean, that's going to be helpful. Now, as we close this out, give me, as a listener of the show, last words of wisdom through the eyes or the lens, vision of Bettor Vision, as we close this out here, using the app, I guess.
Yeah. So, one, if you're betting on sports, make sure you're price shopping. Right? Whether you use Bettor Vision or not, shop around, make sure you're getting the best prices. If you were going to go buy a pair of shoes, you probably wouldn't just go to the store nowadays. You'd probably go onto Google or Amazon or something and price shop. Do the same thing with your sports bets, right? So make sure you're getting the best odds. The more books you have, the more you can, price shop and make sure you're getting the best options. And then don't feel like you have to limit yourself in the number of leagues you play in, right? As I got more senior in job responsibilities and started having more kids, it was at one point I was in, I think maybe 6 or 7 leagues, and then dropped down to those 4 when I started Bettor Vision, because I was I can't do this. I just can't manage all these leagues. And so hopefully Bettor Vision will make it easier for you, so you don't have to stop playing with your friends and can play in a lot more leagues.
There you go. Get some Bettor Vision in your fantasy and betting life. That's Bettor Vision, of course. To learn more about Bettor Vision, head to bettorvision.us. Next week, we talk to someone in the field of bad news. Well, injuries. A guy who's probably pretty busy this time of year, especially after week 1 travesty. It's just been crazy out there with the injuries. Unfortunately, we still got to talk about him, though. At the day of the recording of that interview, we're only a day or two away from the Lions-Chiefs games, and we speculated on if Kelsey would play or not. We all know he didn't now, but it's fun to just go back and re-listen to all of the other stuff that we discussed. So you got to make sure you mash that little subscribe or follow button in podcast player choice. That way you get the episode hot off the presses as soon as it releases. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through. Thank you for listening to this episode of Fantasy Football Origin Stories. To make sure you're the first to get the next episode, please make sure to mash that little subscribe or follow button on your podcast player of choice, then head over to the website for the show notes and more Fantasy Football Origin Stories. That's at fantasyfootballoriginstories.com. And remember, dudes, where we're going, we don't need roads.
Great Scott.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I wanted to thank you for stopping by to listen to another episode here on the Sports History Network. Our podcasters are passionate about uncovering and sharing sports stories from yesteryear. And if you didn't know it already, we have over 30 shows across the network covering all sorts of sports history topics. In fact, here's a glimpse into one of our awesome podcasts here on the network.
The Pigskin Tales podcast is all about the lesser-known pro football players. Yes, there are stories about the ones we know, like Brad Tarkenton and Harold Red Grange. But have you ever heard of Ernie Nevers? How about Dave Osborne or even Grady Alderman? These men created their own path to the NFL. How did they do it? Listen to the Pigskin Tales podcast, now streaming on your favorite music platform. Go to pigskintales.com.
How about that? I bet you're super hyped to go listen to that new podcast, right? Well, to learn about this show and all the other podcasts on the network, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com/podcasts. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/podcasts. Head over there today to find your next favorite sports history podcast.